that brings in an administrative skill set is, as far as managing meetings and things like that, because that's a need. Or that high school part, it's just an opinion, Joe, I'm not asking you to make a decision, but what do you, just because you go to the meeting, and I don't know if Amy goes or not, but what do you think comes up more?
I think as you really look at the purpose of the CAC, it's to have a group of people who are knowledgeable about our schools and what's happening in our schools. And I think if we omit the high school component, we're really limiting the knowledge base that district staff would work, purpose district staff would serve on the CAC.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I would agree.
Anybody disagree? Okay, so I think
So we'll bring
are we agreeing tomorrow
Marla's
to
name
be
forward
the addition then?
to the superintendents.
Okay, so that moves forward to superintendent for approval. Number 5, cases update.
We had a casements webinar. It was not anything earth-shaking, really. They're not making really any changes at this time to casements. The only change to the actual casements information is that the 2 fields that had asked about AB 2726 or 3632 have been omitted. So I know the AB work group has been asking to have more data collection on mental health, but at this time, at least through the casements system, there have been no changes that made that. DRDP was also addressed during the casements seminar, and you do have, I did a handout because they kind of went into more detail, and just the important thing I think to know is that all preschool-age children now have to have be assessed using the DRDP access. And previously there was a choice that the IEP team made between the DRDP-R and the DRDP access. And they worked out the R form. And so they did ask if you have any students perhaps who were retained in preschool that had been previously assessed with the DRDP-R to please let Meredith Cathcart know. I think they're just going to flag those, but they do have to be assessed using the access. The training materials and everything are online. We used to have reports from our DRDP when Cedar System did it, and so they are now bringing those back, and they will also increase some of their Spanish language resources as well. So other than that, you can share this with your staff that work with preschool-age students. Meredith Cathcart's email address is on the second page at the very top in the answer to the first question. So if you have any of those students that had previously been assessed using the R that will be assessing this year, just let her know. There are some other announcements she has. She is going to be doing bi-monthly webinars or phone conferences to share updates in the early childhood field. We are trying to get a list of what the topics for those would be, so, because right now we don't have any topics, so it's a little hard to decide if you're going to use that time without knowing what the topic is. And that's pretty much it for case restaurant. Not a lot happening there.
Number 5, excuse me, number 6, Janet.
Okay, item C6 in your agenda is the estimated 11-12 first 50% of the facility costs. These are preschool centers that have county-operated preschool programs in them, and as has been the past practice and the policy, several of the district of residents of the students served with those facilities support the ongoing utility and maintenance costs of these facilities. I do want to note that Frost, we have a difference this year. The budget, first of all, this is based on first year budget, and it has been adjusted to the actuals of well, the cost of that particular classroom, which equate to approximately 10% of the overall utilities of that facility. And so there is a first 50% transfer that takes place this month. So 50% of the estimated annual costs will be charged back to the district of residents. There's another piece of this though that's not in this agenda, and I'm not sure they, the process is we do the first 50% in October, November, the second 50% of estimated costs in about March, and then also at the beginning of the year, October, then we do a settling up of the prior year. So in the finance agenda, but it's not in the pack agenda, there is a settling up of the 10-11 and what our final costs were. And we actually are going to be returning $42,000 to the districts from the 9-10. The expenses came in lower than we estimated. So the district of residents from 9-10 will be getting $42,991 back.
Say that again, is that each district gets that same amount?
Each district, it's based on their number of pupils that were served at this facility. So the costs were lower. So how I return money is look at what you paid last year, how much you should have paid, if from the actual cost, and then the difference from what you paid, the district paid, and what they actually should have paid will go back to the district of residents. So there's districts are getting credit for, all districts are getting a credit for 10-11, but now they'll be charged the first 50% for 11-12. Does that make sense? Okay, and then when we get to fee-for-service stuff, actually there's a recommendation related to this, but just doing one step at a time. So. Any questions on the facilities?
Number 7, in hearing update feature.
Okay, this is the next step of that process. This is 10-11 fee for service, and what our actual costs came in at for 10-11. And if you want to jump right to the bottom line, the good news is that there's a big return. If you may recall, last year we carried over $1.6 million into this fiscal year. And majority of all of these returns are related to ARA. We had ARA money, and the ARA paid for program costs. And then there was also other things such as furlough days and things, cost savings that have been negotiated in. But so we started off the year with a 1.6. This year there actually was an ending balance, but so our total ending balance in county program prior to reserve or anything is $5 million. So, and those are the fee-for-service program. As you see the different columns for 10-11 fee-for-service program. The ARA, we had 1.3 of ARA money, and that supported ongoing program costs. And then also the community day school program, the special ed community day school. There's 2 STC classes, 1 RS. And that has had an ongoing beginning balance and a savings in that program as well. Let me see if we want any other ending notes. Like I said, we had things that contributed to the ending balance were negotiated furlough days, there was a freeze in step and column, management, we have 8 furlough days, there's a cap on health and welfare, and then of course the ARA. So the numbers, if you want to go to the far right column, first of all, $5.1 million is the ending balance. We have an ongoing practice of keeping 3% reserve. The 3% reserve, and I have these reserves in separate columns. One is related to the fee-for-service program, and one is related to the community day, because it has separate rates. And so between the two, a reserve will be $845,000. I also like to keep for discussion until we roll over to, I also have the 11-12 first interim in here, so we can continue this discussion. But also the logic being that we had in 10-11, 1.3 of ARA money that supported ongoing program costs. Those costs do not go away, but the ARA money's been spent. So I also have designated 1.3 revenue to carry over to support those ongoing program costs. I said that. Keep that in mind as we flip over to first interim. So that would leave a return to districts of $3 million. And as I said when I talked about the facility, one of the things that we would like to suggest in the ending balance that we could do for this year is offset some of that return and pay for the utility cost, the facility costs. That instead of billing back districts, they'll have two billings, and it's only, I think the total facilities is $295,000. So of that $3 million, we could support that facility and not have districts would have two billings this year. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's flip over to first interim, because I want to say that's where we did 10, 11. Now,
I have some comments about this one, but I'll wait till you go to the other one first and then kind of go back, because it might be.
okay, I was gonna say that there's so much information here that I'm trying to keep it real black and white, so we can just if it pertains to this one, you want to talk
Well,
about
let's
10,
wait.
11?
Well,
I have a question. Will this be part of the discussion when we have our joint meeting also?
No, this is
No.
not on the, it is on the agenda for fact, but not as a joint item.
Thank you.
I'll just express kind of my opinion about this right now. I understand there's a significant return that would be due to districts. I think in the past, we have used the facility piece based on the students that are being served at that location. It's specific to those students, and it's basically prorated. So at this time, I think it might be, if we want to move forward in doing that on an ongoing basis, I'm thinking maybe recommend something like that for the out years rather than actually this year. So that's just kind of my opinion about this at this point, because we're changing process. If by doing this, we're changing processes, I've got to change procedures, I've got to do some things to make this happen. So we're still talking the same money. Districts, well, it's not quite the same.
No, it's not,
It'll
because the
be
facilities costs are for preschools,
for preschoolers.
and this return is to all districts.
Right.
So,
That's
we
just
gave
my
that.
opinion about that, is I think that we should keep the facility expenses for the preschool to be used for the students that are actually being served there, just like we do a fee for service. It's kind of the same type thing.
Because some districts looking very quickly have relatively few students in the county preschool programs compared to the number of preschool kids that are served.
And it's just on those sites, it's just on those three sites.
I
That's just
think-
my,
And we had a lot of discussion with the assistant Peggy and Roberta, and sat and talked about, since Dorothy Gibson and the facilities and anything that goes on in Dorothy Gibson is charged back as a program expense, because it is not charged back to district or residents, which, Chafee and the two unified would get the majority of that cost. But, and the reason that it was left out of this bill back is because it collects revenue limit, but the revenue limit doesn't pay for the total facility. So those costs, the logic being that the costs that are associated with Dorothy Gibson that are only high school students is included in program costs, and there is some sharing of costs. And then the other thing that has been Sharon's concern for quite a while is just the difference that bill backs and different things amongst all regions, and this, the other regions that have independent sites, it is included in fee for services, as against the whole rather than a bill back. So it was just trying to incorporate and get things like across all the counties. So, it's up to you guys, it doesn't matter to us one way or the other, but it was an option here that it would eliminate a second bill back. So, and the
given
more
the
we
cash flow
dissect costs,
situation districts are facing at this time too, it would seem more advantageous for the districts to take the cash right now, and then those other payments are made,
It could help districts.
I think,
two different.
I think this would be a good opportunity when the county is going to be proposing a fee for service for next year. If you want the facility cost to be included for the preschool expenses that we have, it could be presented that way. I know you're going to be talking about your fee for service model concept, and I don't believe this piece is in there. So
we didn't
may
talk
need to-
about it.
Right, so we need to